but few of us struggle to enjoy it. Many of us fall into the misconception that peace is external. For example, if only I had more money, if only I had a good or godly spouse, or if only I had a better job, or if only I had more time. When you get the point, right? You always want something to help you find peace. But we must understand that when we make our peace conditional, our peace becomes temporary. It becomes shallow, and it's weak. It's not. My computer's frozen, of course, right? Why wouldn't it be? It's just as fast as it comes, as you find it, it goes away, because it's not something that is. Oh, there we are. There we go. Sorry, technology, right? Just as fast as we find it, the external influences, it goes away and vanishes, and it's removed. Our minds, or even if we do find peace in more money, or in a better spouse, or a good spouse, or a spouse, then our minds shifts to find something else that we need to supply or find to find more peace. But we learn that true peace must come from God, and it only comes from God. In Philippians 4:6-7, it says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your heart and your mind as you live in Jesus Christ. That's the kind of peace that is not conditional, or that it's not temporary. The peace that covers you and it sticks to you. And you may say, yeah, well, that's easier said than done. And you're right. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. We can achieve such peace. Everything we need is in our Bible, the book. Now, I've heard people use the Bible as an acronym. Bible, what is it? Basic instructions before leaving earth. Everything we need to understand about peace and love and even God Himself is in our Bibles. All we have to do is just submit ourselves and find it and look for God. In Isaiah 26:3, it says, you will keep the perfect peace, all who trust you, for your thoughts are fixed on you. In other words, in Isaiah it's saying, everyone that trusts you, Lord, you will keep them in perfect peace. That's the peace that we need to strive for, not the temporary peace. So you may say, I want to have peace, but I can't silence my thoughts. I have a lot of things in my head. And God tells us, He shows us that all our battles are in our minds. We battle the enemy in our mind. He doesn't come full frontal with us and start duking and setting up. He comes to our minds and infiltrates us in that way. And the enemy knows our weakness. He knows our strength better than we do. I've heard one preacher say, the enemy believes more in you than you believe in yourself. He knows exactly what we are capable of and what we are weak to. So that's why the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, don't copy the behaviors. I'm reading off of the NLT, I believe it is. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. If we find and struggle to find what our purpose is, God will tell us. If we struggle to find peace, God will tell us. If we struggling to find direction, the Bible will tell us. That's why it says, I'm going to quote it in a different verse. It says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. So that tells us that we believe with our hearts, but we are transformed with our minds. We have to change the way we think. We have to change the way we act. We have to change the way we do things to be able to get closer to God. Now, don't get it wrong. This is not conditional for God to get close to you. But when we change the way we think, we then start shutting the door for the enemy, and he won't be able to use all the tools that he has against us. And now, we like I said before, we have this battle in our minds. And the way God created us so perfectly that we have several tools to help ourselves through the Word of God, of course, to be able to fight these battles that the enemy has waged against us. For example, back in the old days, in the ancient days, in the caveman days, if you want to say, when humans face any type of threat, like a lion or another person, or even a force of nature, immediately our bodies will kick in cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone. I won't go too much into details on this one. It's a hormone that helps us dilate our pupils. It raises the heart rate. It raises our blood pressure and sends adrenaline all through our bodies. And that will help us. That's the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is where you start getting in that pose and they're ready to go. That's when we are faced with threats. Now, we're not going to be facing any type of saber tooth or anything like that. But sometimes the way things have come to us in a threatening way, it may be in the form of a speech in front of a crowd, like I'm feeling right now. I have a lot of questions I'm going through. I'm kidding. No, but, school or facing your boss, you think you did something wrong and they send you a text. Thank you. My assistant, thank you very much for it. The boss may send you a text, say, I need to talk to you. Immediately your mind, and it's happened to me all the time, and I know better, but immediately, okay, what did I do? In your head, you start going, and your body starts producing cortisol, and you start like getting all anxious, and it's like, when it really is nothing. And for a lot of times, people say, you know what? It's not a big deal. But for some people, it is. For you, it may not be a big deal to stand up here and talk in front of a crowd. For somebody, it is. For you, it may not be a big deal to go talk to somebody you have a crush in. For some people, it may be. So that's something that we have already God put it in our bodies. And that's so that we can learn to stay alive, per se, right? God created us perfectly. He knew exactly what we need. And the Bible says that David says that in Psalms 139:14, it said, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous, how I well know it. So then that tells us that we can be able to say to ourselves, okay, I'm okay. When we face fears and then we come out of it, our body produces another hormone called dopamine, which is called the feel-good drug or hormone. And that's when we can say, I'm okay. That's why I'm able to stand here and saying, okay, nobody's going to come and lynch me for speaking in front of you. I'm okay, as long as I speak the word of God, of course. So dopamine is that relaxing hormone that we have after we face something that gives us anxiety. Some people, cortisol, just to give you a little bit of insight what it is, it helps us, it keeps us from any type of, it helps us with motivation, anticipation, learning memory, rewarding, seeking, and motor control. It's something that is good. The point I want to get to, that was the technical part. I'm not going to get any more technical than this. Believe me. The point I wanted to get to is that a lot of times we find this feel good in several things that it really isn't given from God. Now, I'll be one to admit that we find this instant, we call it instant gratification, which is the dopamine overload of our phones, for example. I'll get up in the middle of the night and I'll use my phone for light, because you know how it is when you're half awake and it's dark, and I'll use my phone for lighting. And as soon as I go to the restroom to do whatever, since I already have it in my hands, I immediately start going into notifications and what's going on, not important. But that instant gratification that I get from seeing that, it just gets hold of me, and I've learned to try not to, well, first of all, leave the light on so I can be able to see myself, but not to rely on this. Dopamine is a good thing that God has put in our hearts, but it is we have an overload on it now in these days. Some of us that are a little bit older, from the Generation X, they call it, we can remember being able to sit down and just stay quiet, as we did earlier this morning in the beginning of the service, where we just quiet. For some people, and myself included, it is hard. It is hard to sit, but not because there's something wrong with us. It's that we're constantly being bombarded by all this dopamine overload from food, from social media, from even music. Things that when we look for these things to make us feel good, it's an artificial dopamine. Now, dopamine is in our body to help us counteract the cortisol. When we fight, we're in that fight and flight freeze. When we overcome it or we get off of it, we then get an overload of dopamine, and that's fine. That's what we're supposed to have. But now in these days, we've stuck into the excessive overload of dopamine through social media, through notifications, and like I said, some of us, including myself, love to eat, and that's another form of us getting that instant gratification. Again, trying to get back to my notes here. We normally need to slow down, because even though the tools that we use, which is the phone, and it's a tool, right? When we go into that trap of opening it and getting notifications, we know we have control of when we touch it, but we don't have control of what we see. And that's where the enemy comes and infiltrates us. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything bad that you see. For example, one of the things that I've noticed is that I'll go into a preaching, and I'll see a preaching, and then I'll see a bunch of other reels, especially cats. I like cats. And you just get an overwhelming amount of coming into your phone and over and over. And not that there's anything wrong with looking at preachings. Obviously, you're saying, well, that's good, right? Because you're looking at preaching. Yeah, but what happens is that distracts us from our time with God. It's not, the devil doesn't want us to show us bad stuff, per se, in our phone. He wants us to take our time away from God. If we don't control our time and our attention and our focus, he will take it and he will use it against us. Quiet and stillness is something that it seems to be like a superpower now. Hardly anybody can actually sit down and just relax and hear the voice. And the Bible encourages, for example, in Samuel, when God called Samuel, and he says, Samuel, and Samuel's response was, "Speak, Lord, your servant is here." Something that we need to find ourselves to slow down, like the song says, slow me down. Because it's not about being busy and doing everything for God. It's more of slowing yourself down and hearing God's voice. We have to understand that we are a vessel. Everything that's in our mind, we're like a vessel, and the vessel will be filled. What we fill it with is up to us. The Bible tells us in Philippians 4:8, it says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is true, pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, If anything is excellent and praiseworthy, think of such things. God will give us peace that we need, but we have to find it in His Word. We need to stop. Set yourself a timer. Go home, put a timer on your phone for 60 seconds or a minute, and just put it down and close your mind, close your thoughts, and say to God, God, I'm here. Speak to me. I've noticed that the times that God has spoken to me the most and the most elaborate is when I stay quiet. A lot of times I'll come to God and I'll say, God, I need more money. I need more time. I need this. I need that. This is happening with me. This is happening with that. And which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times we need to stop and listen to what God wants to tell us, because God's there ready to take us by the hand in the direction that He wants us to go, that is beneficial for us. But unfortunately, we get into this, if it's not gratifying me mentally, it's not, I don't want it. And so we'll go into social media, and I keep on saying social media, I'm sorry. That's the only thing that I can think of, because that's basically the strongest hold that the enemy has on everyone. And if we put our minds at peace through following just silence. If you have a problem with, like myself, if we have an issue with social media, then log out. I remember, I don't know if you remember, some of you guys may remember, back then when you would have an app and you would close it, it would automatically log you out. And if you had to go back in there, you would have to log yourself in. I remember when Facebook, you would hit an end, and that's it. It would say no more notifications or no more new things. Yes, that was back then. Another thing we can do is, on your phones, there is a great little thing that where you can change your ringtones to your notifications. Put the ringtones of the important notifications at a certain ringtone, so that way whenever it rings, you don't have to. Sometimes I notice myself, it becomes hard. It is hard to sit down and have lunch or a meal without having to constantly looking at your phone. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. It gets lethal or bad when it takes away from God. When all we have to do is just open the door a little bit for the enemy to use any weapon that he has, any tool that he can get against us. And I'm only saying the phone or any electronics because that seems to be the greatest avenue. Have you ever noticed, gone to a doctor's office or a restaurant and you look around, just look around and see how many people are on their phone like this? I'll admit, I've done that too. But a lot of times I like to see, and I know that God can use this tool in a mighty way, but when it becomes greater than God, that's when we need to pump the brakes a little bit and find out, okay, Lord, I think I need to back off and hear your. And the reason why I say this is because when we make our mind so busy and we overload ourselves with artificial dopamine, because that's what it is, it's artificial. It's not something that we produce. It's being produced by us, but through an external influence, which is a phone. For some of us, it's maybe food or having to constantly be around somebody. I know of some people, I know of a person that, I'm not going to say any names, but this person went out on a camping trip. Now, most of us understand when you hear camping, you're detached from technology, right? That's the purpose of going camping from that. But this person was having a very, very difficult time coping because that person didn't have any signal where they were at. So they couldn't watch any movies, or couldn't hear the news. And what if this happened, and what if that? How am I going to get in contact with that? It's like, No, that's when we understand it's like, okay, wait a minute, that's just way too much dependence on something. I've known of other people who can't be alone. They just cannot literally be alone. They have to be around someone. Even if somebody that they don't even like, they have to be around somebody. It's funny, and it's, for myself, I love being alone. And it's hard for me to understand, but I know that it is real. It is real for some people. And the only way that I can tell you that God can help out is when we just stay quiet and listen to God. Romans 5:1 tells us that we find peace with God. And how do we find peace with God? Which is, it says, let me read it. It says, therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through Jesus Christ. Now, you may find, like I said, a better job. I'm not going to say it. Well, I'll say it. You might find a better husband. I'm not saying. You might find better friends. You have better use of your time. But those peace are very conditional. That's not the peace of God. That's the most important thing, is to be in peace with God. To have peace with God is to have peace with everyone and everything. God tells you, Jesus tells us in John 14:27, says, I'm leaving you a gift, my peace of mind and my heart. The peace I give you is a gift the world cannot give you. So do not be troubled or be afraid. I'll be honest with you, brothers and sisters. I flew through this because, like I said, I was experiencing the same thing I was telling you, which is the anxiety, the fear. And it's not scary to be up here to talk to people. What's scary is to say something that doesn't align with God. That's the only fear that I can tell you. And the only thing I can tell you is this. Just like the blind man, when Jesus saved him or healed him, and I believe the Sanhedrin were asking him, so tell me again what happened? And his words were, look, I don't know. The only thing I know is that I was blind and now I see. And they're all because of Jesus. And I can stand up here and tell you about cortisol and dopamine and social media and all this. And it is informative. But the only thing I want to tell you, which is the most important thing, is peace comes through God. Money's not going to give you peace. Friends are not going to give you peace. More time is not going to give you peace. The only peace you're going to find is through God. I don't understand it. I don't know how it works. I can tell you that I've experienced that the peace that surpasses all understanding. When I was working last year, around this time of year, I was making a lot of money. And I was working a lot of hours. And then I started coming to church here to New Hope. And my hours start coming down. Normally, I would be panicking. Normally, I would be like, what are we going to do? How are we going to pay this? We had enough money. We just didn't have enough money to live the way I wanted to live. But the money wasn't coming in as it was coming in. And my wife and I were like, and I remember we both said to each other, it's like, we should be worried, but I'm not. That's the peace that God gives you. You know, I should be worried because I don't have enough for the rent, but I'm not. I should be worried because they're going to shut down my light or they shut my light off, but I'm not. I should be worried because I have the presentation to give at school next week, but I'm not. And that peace is only found through God. No matter how much we try to look for our own peace, and we might find it, but that peace won't last. That peace won't cover everything. Only through God would we find peace that covers everything.